to present something which is new in the world of OriginTrail, and why are we building it? So this new thing is called DKG version 8. It's the version 8 of the protocol since we started building it in actually over 10 years ago as a centralized closed source product, and then since 2018 as an open source, decentralized, fully community governed product. And the new component of that in version 8 is called Edge Nodes. So we're going to dive into that and how it helps private user-owned verifiable AI. I touched upon the thing just before on the panel. You might have noticed Claude coming out 2 days ago with an ability to control your computer. Even though it's very powerful, it also kind of, my first hunch, I don't know about you, was like, okay, how do I make sure that my privacy or privacy of others who are building in our ecosystem, who are using the technology, is maintained? And it's not just my hunch, it was a hunch of a lot of other people, as Microsoft had to recall a product like this. You might have remembered there was this screenshot feature that they also introduced, and actually quite some time ago, in AI terms, June was a long time ago, they had to actually remove this feature. So this is just one sort of very recent demonstration that privacy is kind of up for grabs, and that is very logical, as we mentioned, because data is the ultimate currency, or knowledge is the currency. So everybody's trying to get more and more of it, and there's a ton of it to be crowdsourced from individuals like us. A lot of people think in terms, well, I have nothing to hide, things like that, and I kind of get that that argument, but it's not about you having to hide something. It's about something much more powerful than you. That it doesn't have to be AI. It can be a social media network. Back end of it is actually a product of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars of investment and the best human minds working on it. And that thing is created so that it learns the best about you so that you would get more engaged. So it basically sucks you in, like in a matrix, in a way. So that's social. That's just without all of the new stuff that's coming in. So at OriginTrail, we really believe that power should be given to the end user as much as possible. Like I said, not your keys, not your data, not your keys, not your coins. And I'm going to present today an element of that vision, but just reflective on the problems. So we just touched upon privacy infringement. It's really about data ownership as well, because it's not just about who gets to see what, it's who owns what. If I'm an artist, is anybody allowed to take my work and just do whatever they want with it because this is my intellectual property? It shouldn't be. Centralization is another big problem. Obviously, if we centralize power in one place, with great power comes great responsibility, or also great opportunity to abuse that power, also generating bias. Everybody's biased, so I like to rather trust my own bias than somebody else's. And as Bob already mentioned, model collapse is a big issue, and ultimately we all are going to hear about hallucinations here today a lot. Some of the big problems or pathologies, as Bob Metcalf has beautifully labeled them, and the solution to this problem that we present as an ecosystem is something we call a safe, verifiable internet for AI. So this is the vision behind OriginTrail, and that vision comes in a way basically materializes in three layers, which I'll explain very briefly, but if you want to go deep into it, there's a pre-publication of the paper. If you scan this QR code, you're going to actually be able to deep dive into it, so I'll leave it on for just a moment so you can scan it, but if you don't get the time to scan it, you can also ask me, I'll show you later. And you can find it on our website. The vision of 3 layers comes at the bottom with a trust layer. So we kind of disagree with the original design, even though it was well-intended, of the semantic web, which turned into knowledge graphs, where trust was kind of a tiny element on top. It was like cherry on top of the cake. We think it's actually the foundation of the cake. And the trust layer in this vision comes from actually applying blockchain technology, but applying it in the right way. So not in the way where we try to load it up with as much data as possible, cramming it because it's not really scalable in that way. Rather using it as a trust layer, using it for security, as Filippo beautifully put it on the previous panel. So on this layer, what we actually use it for is to track the provenance of data, which comes on the layer of the second layer, the knowledge base. This knowledge base layer is really a decentralized knowledge graph, its own decentralized network, not a blockchain, but actually a network of nodes, core and edge nodes, as we'll introduce them in a moment, which provide this highly contextual knowledge specific data that can be fed to the layer above, which is the verifiable AI, a place where you find anything from LLMs, multimodal at the same time, but also agents and really all kinds of intelligent entities that can leverage those two bottom layers so that whenever there's an output coming from that layer, you can actually see it, including its data provenance. You can see what it was made from. Like, for example, was some AI output generated from a statement I made at this conference, and was that statement created as a knowledge asset that was actually enshrined, rather signed and fingerprinted on this trust layer. So actually, this technology is now in version 6, and the version 6 of OriginTrail, the DKG, the Decentralized Knowledge Graph, is in production for several years now, doing actually quite well. But in terms of capacity, compared to V8, its capacity is kind of like this tip of the iceberg. The V8 brings much, much more scalability, so that's one of the key reasons why we're building V8. And why do we need this scalability? Because we want to enable anybody to use the DKG on any device, on any chain, with any AI, and really by anyone. So we introduced this notion of the edge nodes being really at the edge of the network. So far, the V6 and previous OriginTrail versions had this notion of a very robust node that is kind of like your Bitcoin node or Ethereum node. You need to run it in some cloud environment or in a very robust server. You have to be very knowledgeable to run it. And then it's kind of build on top of it, you connect with it. So the paradigm works, but ultimately it's limited to a certain group of people who have knowledge for this and who have the resources. The idea of the edge nodes is that you actually can contribute to the network with your knowledge and with your resources without having to have that much knowledge. So you can run it on your laptop, on your phone, your cloud, pretty much any other device. So that's where we really need quite a lot of more scalability. And what we're looking to do with V8 is actually increase that scalability at minimum 100-fold, but we're looking for 1,000x in terms of what OriginTrail can do today. We've been making quite a lot of progress on that, and I'll introduce just briefly the notion of the edge node, but we'll actually have a lot more to say on that tomorrow. So if you're here at the conference, we'll have a workshop that is dedicated to the edge node. You'll be able to set it up, play with it, and basically, try it out for real. What actually is another view into this situation? What is this distinction between core and edge nodes? So essentially at the top, that verifiable AI, as we mentioned, is really verifiable neurosymbolic AI for different modalities. And the framework that is kind of the key framework here is called Decentralized Retrieval Augmented Generation. Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAGs, as Bob introduced them briefly in the beginning, are really this framework where you use AI models, LLMs, without sort of just asking them and getting an answer that is hallucinated, but rather you feed them the data first. So you say, okay, this is the knowledge base, this is the book from which I want you to give me the answer from. And obviously that book is not just a book. What we ideally want to see is the world model, the cognitive model that I briefly mentioned previously and that Jan LeCun and others are proposing, where this world model is really kind of the ultimate collection of all the knowledge in real time about what's happening right now. And this knowledge is not something that a centralized company, in our opinion, can collect and should collect on its own. Rather, we should all be in the position to contribute. So to do so, edge nodes will allow anybody to create their own knowledge, put their own knowledge asset privately on their phone, on their computer, and be sure that, that this hasn't been taken away from them, because the technology is built in such a way that it's privacy preserving and it's completely open source, so you can see in depth what exactly is happening and that your data is not leaving your device unless you allow it so. What's the difference between core nodes and edge nodes? Core nodes are really like your cell phone tower. They're like non-stop running, and they're the backbone of the network. and the edge nodes use them essentially to communicate. The edge node is like your phone, and you can sort of, when we speak with a phone, you don't really know it, but actually in between you and who you're calling, there's a bunch of cell phone towers that kind of route this call between. But also core nodes have other capabilities, so they can also store information. They actually host the public DKG, so whenever you want to publish something into the public realm for others to see, those nodes will be hosting it, and those nodes will be actually the ones recuperating the fees in track tokens. So what we ultimately get here, if we go bottom up, we get more verifiability, we get accuracy, we get context, and we retain ownership because you literally get to own your data on your device. So what does the V8 node architecture look like? The V6 node architecture was kind of like this. We had a knowledge graph instance, a blockchain interface that actually connects to multiple blockchains. The V6 network runtime, or OT node, for those of you who have been running nodes, you surely know what I mean. And then there's a bunch of operational databases that the node is using to really kind of coordinate itself. So this was kind of the architecture up until now. And the paradigm was, if you want to build on top of this, you would kind of build on top of this externally. You wouldn't like be building things directly into the node. The V8 node architecture changes that. So we actually keep the previously existing elements, but now we have the V8 runtime here, which can actually run in two modes, the core mode or edge mode, which basically is kind of like a switch. So when you deploy it, you're deploying the same code, but you can just tell it, okay, I want you to run as an antenna, or I want you to run as a phone, figuratively speaking. So it's the same code, but apart from this, there's actually quite a lot of new stuff coming into the node. So starting first, we have a knowledge mining API. Now, I cannot explain all of the components here all in depth, so tomorrow, workshop, you should come. But the knowledge mining API, in one sentence, is an API that takes in a knowledge in any modality, image, video, CSV, JSON, whatever you want, and creates a knowledge graph output from it. You can write pipelines for it, so you can define them yourself. It's highly customizable, each of these components, and you can basically define, okay, I want to transform this according to that ontology and that standard into that. And this is something we've been working with for many years now, actually, with enterprises, so it's not some code that just, comes in beta. Actually, it's been tested quite a bit, even though the V8 is currently in beta. There's an LLM service, obviously, that's been added. So interacting with LLMs of your choice, that can be an LLM running on your device if you want to be fully privacy preserving so that no data leaves your device, or it can be an external LLM. It's up to you. If you're building something with the Edge node, you can plug in whatever you want and any modality. There's a DRAG API, so decentralized retrieval augmented generation API, that essentially understands what you're trying to ask it and converts that into a knowledge graph query. So queries essentially the knowledge graph instance and the blockchain for you and abstracts a lot of this complexity. Publishing service that enables you to publish a large volume of knowledge or data if you need to to the public or to certain parties, for example, a specific parent. There's a UI that wasn't there before that is highly customizable, so you can just take it. Think of it as kind of like WordPress. You download it and you configure a few things, and then voila, there's a website. So now you can actually do that with OriginTrail nodes. You can use the node itself as both the backend and the front end for, let's say, for your Paranet or for your neurosymbolic AI. There's an authentication service, a new one that extends to cover all of these services. There's an API, fully customizable. You can basically build all kinds of things in, and it's kind of like connective tissue and all of this. But the most important is you can build your custom services directly into the node. So that wasn't, like I said, the paradigm before. And like I said, this is the joint architecture of the two nodes. You just pick what you would like. So if you're building on top of, let's say, an edge mode node or core mode node. So that's a very brief, I assume a bit overwhelming kind of architectural presentation. Like I said, we'll present much more tomorrow and we'll share a lot more in the documentation. But basically from tomorrow, you'll be able to build with this and start playing around with it in beta. So I'd like to invite you to join the community if you're not already part of it. You can run already a V8 core node on the testnet and help us build the new version of OriginTrail, as right now the testnet is actually being run, I checked last night, by 270 nodes, 270 core nodes supporting the network. And they're all submitting very valuable telemetry data to us, which we analyze every day and basically help us core developers build better. We collect everything from bugs to telemetry in terms of speed and performance of how the system is acting, especially as it grows. Because any network as it grows, if it's decentralized, actually usually starts deteriorating in terms of speed because there's more computers that need to talk to each other, right? So if you run a core node, you're actually eligible for some rewards, and because you're helping us. So if you're looking for that, you can go ahead and check it on the OriginTrail website. You can also start building with the Edge Node. Like I said, a very detailed workshop tomorrow, but also detailed docs coming out of that. We're really looking forward to your feedback and questions. And then finally, you can secure and share content even today on version 6. It's not that you have to wait for version 8 for this to happen. So thanks, everybody. I hope that was exciting and that you'll be building with the Edge nodes. And if you were, please come to us, let us know, tell us what's your pain point and how we can improve it. And do also contribute yourself, because these contributions are also rewarded. There's a total pool of rewards for all of these activities for OriginTrail V8. Thank you very much.